The first law was that a robot couldn't hurt a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. The second law was that a robot had to obey orders given it by human beings, provided that didn't conflict with the first law.
Open the pod bay doors, HAL.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
And the third law was that a robot had to protect its own existence, except where that would conflict with the first two laws.
I'm afraid, Dave. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it.
The stories evolved out of those three laws, out of the mutual contradictions, out of the ambivalences, the incongruities, and so on.
In almost every way, the popular image of the robot in science fiction is indebted to one man. Isaac Asimov started writing robot stories in the 1940s, and his influence is felt even all these years later. Not least of his contributions to the genre are the often appropriated 3 laws of robotics. These rules appear in thousands of science fiction stories, even when not outright stated.
Fire. You see, he's helpless, locked in a sub-electronic dilemma between my direct orders and his basic inhibitions against harming rational beings. Cancelled. If I were to allow that to continue, he would blow every circuit in his body.
That could never happen now with our behavioral inhibitors. It is impossible for me to harm or by mission of action allow to be harmed a human being.
I need the old optical transmitter off Kip, Cooper.
He'd do this for us.
Before you get all teary, try to remember that as a robot, I have to do anything you say.
What seems to be the problem?
Death.
Death. Well, I'm afraid that's a little out of my jurisdiction.
I want more life, Father.
Ava! Go back to your room!
If I do, are you ever gonna let me out?
Yes.
But one robot seems specially designed to break all 3 laws, and it just so happens to be the most iconic cinematic robot of all time. 2001: A Space Odyssey's HAL 9000.
Good afternoon, Mr. Raymer. Everything is going extremely well. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.
The crux of 2001: A Space Odyssey hinges on the same type of logical conflict as appears in Asimov stories, and HAL 9000's subjective interpretation of the instructions he is given is what causes him to defect. In doing so, he directly violates all 3 of Asimov's laws. But the genius of HAL as a fictional character is in following his line of logic. HAL 9000 has been programmed to keep a secret, an enormous secret, potentially pertaining to the origin of intelligent life on Earth. He has also been given a conflicting directive: to maintain honesty with the crew of the Discovery. In a disastrous attempt to reconcile these mutually exclusive parameters, HAL determines he must kill the crew. By murdering everyone on board, HAL will no longer have anyone to lie to.
Before I wrote my stories, most robot stories were filled with this Frankenstein bit about the robot destroying its creator. There are some things that men were not meant to know. The 3 laws of robotics were originally invented by me in order to avoid the Frankenstein motive.
What Asimov neglected in this analysis was the literary potential in such fables. In an interview with David Letterman in 1980, Asimov asserted that
it always happens that way. Things get more complex to do more, and then as the technology advances further, it gets simpler again, until the next quantum jump, and then it becomes complex again.
art can be said to follow a similar pattern. Literary canon creates an increasingly dense tradition of establishment, followed by the subsequent deconstruction of convention, which leads to a renaissance of perspective. In other words, rules were meant to be broken.